So I'm Kimberly Kirkland. I'm with UAB Institute for Arts and Medicine, and I'm so excited that we have a wonderful audience today for our third Virtual Mental Health Monday. Virtual Mental Health Monday is our way to explore health and well-being topics through the lens of arts and creativity. And today we were going to look at the relationship between arts and creativity and spirituality. And we know that as humans, we've been creating and expressing ourselves through creativity and arts for tens of thousands of years. And so while we know that the arts and creativity had many purposes, we also know, of course, that it's been a crucial part of all different types of spiritual and religious practices. And so with that, I am just so excited to have three wonderful members of the UAB Pastoral Care team with us today. Malcolm Marler, Michael Horwitz, and Monica Thompson. And they are not only wonderful healers and chaplains for patients and families at our hospital, but they are also practitioners of the arts. And so, without any other information, I'd love to turn it over to Malcolm Marler. He's our Senior Director of UAB Pastoral Care and is an avid photographer. And I know he inspires people all over social media with his beautiful images and thoughts. So thank you, Malcolm.
Thank you, Kimberly. I appreciate it very much. I'd like to say in the beginning that a hobby of mine is photography. I'm not a professional photographer, but I learned a while ago that photography for me has become like and is my spiritual practice. In other words, I primarily focus on nature photography most of the time, and it's just there's something about light and color that catches my eye and causes me to focus. And I need a lot of that, especially these days, a place to focus. And so what I would like to share with you are just some of my photos, and it'll take about 10 or 12 minutes. And here's just in my nature reflections. What I'll be doing is with Dana's help, she'll be showing the photo, and then as that comes up, then there's a reflection that goes with it, and you'll be able to see that. I'm not going to say much other than simply to read what the reflection is, and I'd like to ask you to try to focus on different parts of the nature or the photo itself. So thank you, Dana. If we'll just go to the next slide, and we'll just start there. Every breath we take is an immeasurable gift. Prayers for all who are struggling with their last. God's peace be especially with you. And give you a moment to just focus on the photo or the words or wherever your eye takes you. This one caught my eye just because of the color. I love bluebirds. Every living creature is beloved by our Creator, and that includes you. Let it soak deep into your soul and treat others in such a way so that they can believe it too. We are called to build bridges in relationships in order to connect with one another in the present and to pave the way for those who come after us. This was a fun one in one of the botanical gardens. What gifts are you hiding from the world? Be not afraid, because most of all, we need you to be who you are. This photo of, I was walking in the woods one day. Grief is complicated. It just kind of looks a little complicated to me. The most valuable gift to offer someone who is grieving is the healing balm of listening without fixing, for that is more than enough. This butterfly, drink deeply from the nectar of grace as you live and work with others. And remember especially to receive it as Holy Communion for yourself. Change is challenging. All things eventually change. May we have the eyes to see the possibilities of how even change itself can be beautiful. I thought of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in one of his most famous speeches. For me, I wrote this: prayers for all who experience injustice in my community. And for me to take action for that prayer to be answered. Loneliness is the lack of meaningful connections in our lives and can be as dangerous as COVID-19. Reach out, help others to get wind in their sails. I think in the pandemic, this has been one of our challenges, is to deal with our own loneliness and to try to find different ways to make meaningful connections. I love the color here. May our mercy be without end, especially for the one who is different from us. Boy, do we need mercy, especially with those who are different from us. May you be given exactly what you need to get you through this day. Amen. I took this photo in Taos, New Mexico. I was just walking through the woods and I saw this bird just taking the seed out of the flower, just so much in an expert way. And my hope is that you can be given and find just what you need today as well. This was just taken last week here in Northwest Alabama. Look for the beauty in everything, in everyone, and everywhere until you find it. Gratitude is good medicine. This was taken in Western Canada last year about this time. When we step back and look at the big picture, many of the things we are most anxious about fade away. Be thankful, love, and encourage one another, for this is what matters most. I think for me, seeing big landscapes like this makes me be in awe and wonder, and especially in the reflection of the lake and how all that kind of fits together, that we should be thankful. That's really what matters, helps us to enjoy life. This was down near Jacksonville, Florida last couple of years. What if the pandemic could be an opportunity to change our priorities of how we go forward, rather than waiting until we go back to how we were living? I think some of us are experiencing this. We're realizing this is going to go on for a while. Maybe this could be an opportunity to see how we can be a new self, or at least to look forward to being who we're becoming. I wrote this not too long ago. I get a little bit weary of people, all of us, arguing on social media. So I've tried to put it into words. Arguing on social media creates emotional distance. Maybe arguing anywhere does. Be a good listener in order to connect, to ask questions, and learn from one another. This photo is in Banff National Park in Western Canada. One of the gifts of an uncertain future is learning how to focus on the present. For the here and now is what we have for certain. I was just taken aback mostly by the color, and when we came up on this pond and how clear it was. To focus on the present. Taken here in Birmingham, one of the gifts of slowing down is it can help us be in the moment and to pay attention to what or who is before us. Gratitude shifts our worldview. For me, one of the things that caught my eye about this photo is just the unfocus behind the flowers. It helps me to just focus on what's in front of me. It's trying to teach me different lessons that I desperately need. It's just a few more slides here. This one, cardinal in my backyard, the light just hitting him just caught my eye. May the light of love shine on you and through you in the way that you love your neighbor. Again, in Western Canada. When we slow down and reflect on the chaos in our lives and ask, what is this teaching me about how I want to live? Somehow, if I ask that question, what is this teaching me about how I really want to live? It helps to ask that question and to make changes accordingly. This is in Oregon. When your grief flows, find friends who allow you to feel what you're feeling when you feel it. And avoid a few persons, that is, who may try to fix it. We pray for all persons who care for the sick, whether in nursing homes, at home, or in hospitals. Bless them and their families and help us to thank and encourage them. Give their leaders wisdom, courage, and peace as they make difficult decisions. Finally, help us to be open to the possibility of how even a pandemic can work for good in our lives. This is a prayer I wrote after seeing this rose early one morning with dew still on it. Loving God, give us peace in our minds to soothe our anxiety, while planting seeds of hope in our hearts, so that we can be creative in the way we check on and love our neighbors. If we could get a glimpse of how much we are loved and how much we are forgiven, we could see one another as the beloved human family we are. And may you see the beauty in the fogginess of your life. This was taken on a lake in New Hampshire a couple of years ago in the fall, obviously. Life is sometimes foggy for me. This was taken in my backyard, full moon one night. Let not the needy, O Lord, be forgotten, nor the hope of the poor be taken away. This is a prayer from attend and I'm a part of the Episcopal Church, and that's one of our prayers for the evening. I just think it's so beautifully written. When we realize how much we are forgiven, it creates an overflow for forgiving others. I was just thinking about this as I saw this water coming off this river through this beautiful rock, and just helping me understand and remind me how much we are forgiven. And I hope that it can be shared with others. I think we're getting close to the end here. I think this was taken in the British Virgin Islands. Looked up one day and just went, wow. For all who are weary and carry heavy burdens, may you find hope and rest in this day. I appreciate you just taking a look at these. These are just things that I try to reflect on. There's a lot of repetition, as you can see, and a lot of it, but it's a way to help me focus on my day. And I share this on social media all the time just to try to encourage people in this day and time. I think it's what we need. At least it's what I need. So thank you, Kimberly.
Thank you so much, Malcolm. And just to let everybody know, if you weren't with us before, if you have any questions for any of our speakers, chaplain, artists, please put it in the chat box. And then after we are finished with this portion, then we'll open up to those questions. Now I'd like to turn it over to Michael Horwitz. He is a chaplain, board-certified chaplain with 25 years experience in spiritual leadership. He's also a cantor. And so at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Michael.
Thank you. Thank you, Kimberly. And thank you, Malcolm and Monica and Arts and Medicine and all those who are with us today. We're going through very rough times, and I just think often about different events that have happened, not only in our own lifetimes, but those that have come before us, and knowing that many things are going to occur that are beyond our control in a future where the next generation and generations will be living on this planet and going through things that will determine and make an impact on their lives in ways we can't even begin to comprehend. And so I wanted to just share a little bit of music, which is a big part of my background and what I love, and that has inspired me over the years, hearing other artists sing and compose and worship with liturgy and different religious services, and just touch on that just a little bit. So if we can put up the very first slide, and we're going to just make it a teeny bit larger so everyone can see it a little bit better, perhaps. So if you look at just the first 4 words in Hebrew, those are 4 words. They say, Ledor, Vador, Nagid, Godlecha. And it translates as, from generation to generation, we will tell of your greatness. The greatness of the Lord, the greatness of whatever one's faith or lack of faith or not having faith, whatever one believes in. They can define that and translate that however they would like. But this is from the Jewish liturgy and from part of our prayer services, and it's just part of a larger text. And this is from the Josh Nelson Project. Josh Nelson is a modern day Jewish composer. And I like us to just look at the text in English. This is not the words to the song. This is just an introduction. So I'm going to read this. Take a moment and look at your hands. These hands do not belong only to you. These are not just your hands. These are the hands of our parents and our grandparents. And these are the hands of our children and our grandchildren. These hands hold on to the past, and these hands help us to shape the future. We are not alone on this road we walk. We are carried by the generations that came before us, just as we will carry the generations that are to come. This is our hope. This is our connection. Look at your hands. Now I'm going to sing just to give you a little taste of some of the things that are meaningful to me, and perhaps some of the words, maybe there'll be a word or two, if not the entire text, that will be meaningful to you. We are gifts and we are blessings. We are history in a song. We are hope and we are healing. We are learning to be strong. We are words and we are stories. We are pictures of the past. We are carriers of wisdom, not the first and not the last. Ledor vador nagir God lefa. Ledor vador, we protect this chain from generation to generation. Ledor vador, these lips will praise your name. Looking back on the journey that we carry in our heart, from the shadow of the mountain to the waters that would part. We are blessed and we are holy. We are children of your way. And the words that bring us meaning, we will have the strength to say. Ledor vador nagir God lefa. Ledor vador, we protect this chain from generation to generation. Ledor vador, these lips will praise your name. So that is just one selection. And I'd like to close, and maybe there'll be some comments or questions if we have time later. As Kimberly said, each of our presentations could be an entire longer presentation unto itself. But I'd like to close just with a prayer that is a prayer for healing. And with everything that we're going through these last few months with the pandemic, and thinking about what I said before in the beginning about different generations going through their own difficult times, as well as individually as human beings, having their own conflicts and disappointments and things that they'd like to improve on and things that they'd like to pray for. I think this text for me has special meaning with where we are in our world today. So I have the text up here for you. Feel free, if you'd like, even if you're muted, to sing along. The refrain is the section where it repeats, hear our prayer, and bless us as well. Some of you may be familiar with this. This is done often in the service at Temple Emmanuel, the Reformed congregation here in Birmingham, as part of their Sabbath service and perhaps other times during the year. And I'd like to share that with you now. Mir sheberach avoteinu, Avraham, Yitzchak, veYaakov. Mir sheberach imoteinu, Sarah, Rivka, Leah, veRachel. May the one who blessed our mothers, may the one who blessed our fathers, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well. Bless us with the power of your healing. Bless us with the power of your hope. May our hearts be filled with understanding and strengthened by the power of your love. Mi sheberach avoteinu, Avraham, Yitzchak, veYaakov. Mi sheberach imoteinu, Sarah, Rivka, Leah, veRachel. Bless us with the vision for tomorrow. Help us to reach out to those in pain. May the warmth of friendship ease our sorrow. Give us courage, give us faith, show us the way. Mi sheberach avoteinu, Avraham, Yitzchak, veYaakov. Mi sheberach imotenu, Sarah, Rivka, Leah, veRachel. Hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well. So I say amen, amen, blessings to everyone. And while these are sources, particularly from my Jewish faith and my background, I just wanted to share them with you today. And blessings on your day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael. That was beautiful. And now I would like to turn it over to Monica Thompson. She is an ordained elder in the AME Zion denomination. She's been a chaplain at UAB for 12 years, and she is also a creative writer. And so at this point, I would love to have her share some of her work with us.
Hello, thank you, Kimberly, for your introduction, and thank you for those of you who are joining us today. Some years ago, I actually wrote this book. It's a book of prayers and meditations. I collaborated with former staff chaplain Andrea Jacobs, and our book is titled Before the Flower Blooms. And we wrote this book for Pastoral Care Week, which is typically celebrated the third week in October. And we only made about 25 copies, but we wrote this book for staff, for patients, for caregivers, just as something that would minister to them, that would sort of bring light to their respective experiences, and maybe just bring some comfort and some hope for the journey here at the hospital. And we gave these out again during our Pastoral Care Week some years ago. And I'm just going to recite several of the prayers and the writings that I wrote in the book. The first prayer is taken from the caregiver perspective. And so a lot of times we see caregivers, family members or loved ones, friends who are just so frustrated that they cannot do anything. They're sort of experiencing their own powerlessness as they're watching their loved one sort of struggle with this. So this is the first one. God, while my loved one suffers, I am helpless to prevent it. Show me how to care for them. And again, just wrote that just to kind of speak to their respective experience and their frustration, lack of control and power. And I often encounter, my work is primarily with the oncology patient population, but the on-call chaplain experience here is so rich. You get to be with any service line here in the hospital. The second prayer I'm going to recite for you is taken from the perspective of the angry patient. And they have a right to be angry. They have a right to hold that anger. And so as a chaplain, I sort of want to be a conduit for them in that anger and just invite them just to let it out. And so explore that together. This is that poem. God, I have faced many disappointments and frustrations on this journey. Remind me of hope. And so when you encounter these very angry patients, very rare do you sort of see them with a sense of hope. And this next poem is sort of a prayer for strength. And so again, people sort of experiencing their weakness and awakening to their mortality are often looking for strength. And so this is that prayer. God, in the midst of my distress, please bring me your comfort and send me your peace. Awaken the strength that lies within me to carry me through this difficult journey. Amen. The next one that I would like to read is one for the hungry soul. So we as chaplains, we encounter persons whose souls are at different states of being. And often it's just a soul that is hungry, that just wants to be fed with just some goodness, some righteousness, some peace. And so I wrote this from the perspective of these patients. God, speak to this doubt and fear that is ravaging my mind. Fill the hungry, vacant places in my soul. Touch my heart as I cry out to you. So for my fifth one, I would like to do a poem about courage. A lot of times we have patients who are just so hungry for courage, and they may just be so defeated by side effects from their treatment or just different things that they're experiencing. And they just want some courage just to continue, just to go forward for that next day. And so I wrote this from their perspective. Summon courage from your inner reserves. Face this hurdle armed with faith and hope. Trust that you will see an end. Just wrote that for people who are just so weary, just worn out. And finally, I just want to end with a prayer on hope. I think it's helpful for me to end my sessions with patients and family members and staff with hope. Hope is certainly something for us to look forward to. And in light of the death of Representative John Lewis and Reverend C.T. Vivian, both civil rights just warriors, just pioneers, they always left persons with hope in their messages and in their encounters, in the entire spectrum of work that they did. And so I would like to end on hope. Find hope in unfamiliar places. Find comfort through encouraging words. Find rest after incredible exhaustion. Heal internally and externally. Amen. Thank you all for joining us today, and thank you for listening to some writings from old Chaplain here at UAB. Kim?
That was beautiful, Monica. At this point, I would like to just open it up. We would love to have, if someone would like to ask a question, just, verbally, that's great. If you want to put in the chat box, that is great as well. But in the meantime, I would just like to just ask a question first of Monica. My background, my religious background, is one of, I grew up in the Catholic faith. Mm-hmm. And so when I think of prayers and, the creeds that we would recite, I would never thought about someone actually writing those. It was just kind of, it existed. And then as I started exploring some different spiritual paths, I did notice that people would, prayers that we heard were written by real people. And so, Monica, as I was thinking about the book that you wrote and some of the work that you do, using your creative writing in your spiritual practice with patients, it just seems like writing poems for people in the hospital who are experiencing their most, possibly the most difficult time is such a profound kind of act of love. And so I just was curious, what is your process as you, as you plan to write a prayer for people in the hospital?
I think it's one of reflection, just me sort of being still and letting the words come to me, and just seeing if the patient is open to receive that. And in addition to just my own work, encouraging the patients who may be curious about writing or may have had writing experience in their own histories, doing what I call legacy building and meaning making work, where we actually have patients writing these incredible letters, these beautiful cards for their loved ones, for their children or their grandchildren, and we call them milestone letters. One project I've had with patients is where they would make write a letter or cards for the loved one who would graduate from a high school or college, or someone who was getting married, or someone who was celebrating the birth of their first child. And so I think there's so much in that. Writing is just so rich. And is so important in my life. And I think that was just something I don't want to sort of intrude onto others, but to sort of invite them to see the joy that is contained when we write, that's there. I hope, did I answer your question? I hope I did.
Absolutely. No, that was beautiful. Let's see. I have tons of questions I can ask, but would anybody else like to ask a question? I'll say that we had a couple comments. I think Sharon Morgan, I think she shared after Malcolm was that his sharing was beautiful and peaceful, and that Don Wendorf then said, not a question, but a comment. Thank you for these beautiful gifts to us today. They provide comfort, healing, and hope. That was from Linda Everman. And so again, I would love to, if anyone just wants to unmute themselves, if they have a question for either the group or anyone in particular, we'd love to hear from you if you've got a burning question. Otherwise, I could ask many questions.
This is Michael.
Oh, yes.
I just was wondering if I could comment to your question, kind of to add to what Monica said in terms of what you said about growing up Catholic, and that the prayers were just there, and that you weren't accustomed to having them be written. That's what you said, correct? That's very similar in terms of in Judaism. The liturgy the liturgy for me growing up was it's a fixed liturgy. So the prayers are in Hebrew and English, but most of the service I grew up with was in Hebrew. And if you wanted to pray for something specific or write something, the prayers were just there in the prayer book. So for me as a chaplain, one of the most challenging things for me going through the process, going from being a cantor in the synagogue to working as a chaplain, was being able to be spontaneous and to have prayers that are written from my own mind and in my own heart. And that's related to the music for me as the cantor, and that why so much of this artistic expression, particularly since the late 70s, early 80s. Of course, it was going on before then, but there's just been this skyrocketing boom of music being written with prayers from the liturgy, yes, but with different words, particularly in English and in other countries written in their own languages, not just in Hebrew, to have prayers for specific occurrences or specific events. So I thank you, Kimberly, for asking that question, because I could also relate to that from your perspective.
Great. I'm going to give a few seconds in case someone else wants to jump in before I ask another question.
Hello, everybody. My name is Brendan Price. How are you?
Hi, Brendan.
Good to see you guys. I see a few people I know here on the screen. I love that piece about the music, and I remember a minister when I lived in Orlando said that when we sing it, it's like praying it twice. And there's something about, for me, that happens when tones are involved, sometimes with words and sometimes without words. It connects me to spirit. And I was also moved when I heard finding rest for the weary, for all that carry the heavy burdens. And it put me back into an evening in Germany where I was the primary caregiver for my wife, who's now gone, sweet Jana. She had requested in the last few months of her life to be taken to Germany and to have some treatment over there and to explore Europe and a bit of that country. And the role of the caregiver, our adrenal glands are shooting for weeks and months and sometimes years without stop. And it's exhausting because we don't want to stop. It's hard to take care of ourselves during that time. And I remember the little hospital, it had about 100 beds in it. It had an art room that was open 24 hours a day, and it was available to patients, caregivers, family members, whatever. And I couldn't sleep. many nights. And one night about 3 a.m, I got up and I just went to this art room, and without thinking began to, and I'm not an artist. I mean, I don't claim to be. I guess everybody is on some level, but I just began to create, and I used the things that they had in there, and time stood still. And for a brief amount of time, that late that night, whatever it was, 2 or 3 hours, my body was able to reboot and recenter. My body, mind, spirit, was able to reboot and rest and recenter. And that was my first experience with art and healing. And it was miraculous to me. And so to be here and listening and observing to what's going on here today, I'm just loving this. So that's really all I have. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks, Brandon.
Anybody else have anything they would like to share right now? Well, then I will go ahead and ask another question. What does, just, for each of you and for anyone, and we may have some other chaplains on this Zoom as well, and you can, love to have you jump in too. What does a day in the life of a chaplain at UAB Hospital and, the greater hospital clinics, et cetera, what does that look like for you?
Nick or Michael, I'll let y'all go first. You're on the front lines.
And again, I'll say especially maybe what also does it look like maybe pre-COVID, and what does it look like? How has it changed now? However you'd like to answer this.
Well, I can sort of speak to that. Especially there was sort of pre-COVID, we were running, we were humping, we were jumping. And so then of course we had the shutdown period from March through May, early part of May. And so I think at this point we're picking things back up. For a chaplain, no 2 days are the same. You really never know. It's the same in sort of how you sort of go about rounding and checking in, with your patients, with your staff, completing the requests, the referrals and consults on our system. So that's sort of the same, but no 2 patients are the same. You have no idea what you're going to encounter once you cross the threshold into that sacred space with that patient. And oftentimes they are inviting you into their personal hell. Come walk this journey with me, whatever this looks like. And so we are patient with them. We walk that journey. We go into that difficult space with them. And if they are receptive to whatever joy, whatever hope is there, we walk them to that place as well. Michael?
I agree with all of that. That's spot on. I was actually going to start by saying that no 2 days are the same. That's why I had a little chuckle on my face. One of the big challenges that has occurred over the last 2 or 3 months in particular, even back when everything started, is that we're used to seeing families and more guests and visitors walking through the halls. And while we do a lot of focus with the patients, many times patients going before March, patients are often at times not able to communicate. They may be intubated or sleeping or unconscious. And we're communicating with family members who are in the room or in the waiting rooms. And now we are starting to have visitors come back, although it's limited and different units have different policies and procedures, as does the hospital with what are the expectations for that. But during that period where we did not have visitors here and not have a family member in the room with a patient, particularly with a patient, whether it was a COVID patient or not, a patient who could not communicate, we did not have that family member present. So we've done a great deal with communicating via phone, similar to what patients, all of you as patients, outpatient, having medical appointments. I don't mean patients in the hospital, but your own medical appointments are done through the phone, through Zoom or other methods of communication. So our role has shifted in that there are often times where we're also the messenger, and that we're giving information back and forth, helping a family member. Maybe there's a family member that's coming from out of town, and a patient might be moving from one unit to another, and they're not sure specifically when a surgery is taking place. Just to have little details about to help them coordinate their travel to get to Birmingham. Something like that has happened actually in the last couple of weeks, where that took myself and another chaplain to help coordinate to get the information to the family, and that helped give them peace of mind that the communication was being disseminated to them in a very careful, caring way.
I would just add very quickly, Kimberly, that I'm right there with both of our team members who spoke, but also we are one of the gifts of COVID-19 is that it has invited us, almost insisted, that we find new ways to connect, to be grateful, to offer more intentional support to employees who are struggling with just fatigue in general. And so it reminds us that of where a lot of our care is also needed, and not just with our patients, which is important. We have 1,000 to 1,100 patients in the hospital today. And so, it's a busy place, but I think one of the gifts I'm trying to kind of move my own viewpoint from is not trying to go back as much as what are we learning now that can help us going forward.
I think I could definitely say I think a lot of people are now kind of open to that as not going, well, when we go back, when things are back to normal. But yes, how can we learn from this time and use those, our new ideas, new technology to continue to help. I have another question, unless someone else wants to just pop something in the chat if you want me to pause so we can invite other questions. Another question that I have, again, is for all three of you. When I think about the work that you do, I think about the great responsibility that you have and that you carry to provide spiritual care for people, for families, for patients, again, when they possibly could be experiencing the most difficult time of their life. How do you, I guess I'm thinking about self-care, like how do you care for yourself? How are you able to transition, from the hospital to home? What do you do to take care of yourself?
Well, one of the things my team would tell you is Malcolm's a lot better at teaching us or telling us how to do that than the way he does it. In other words, I know all the right words to say, but I don't always do it. So I'm trying to pay attention to that a little bit more. One of the things I've noticed during the pandemic is I am more, I don't know what the word would be. My wife could tell you better than me. I'm just a little more on edge. So the typical question someone might ask me, I might answer it with a different tone. I've noticed that. That's just something that's a little different for me. Monica or Michael?
This this period of time, our pace in the hospital has been a little bit slower, in the sense that I have found I have more time when I'm walking from one unit to the next, from one patient to the next, to really process my thoughts more and think. And as I'm walking throughout the hospital and at home when I'm not at the hospital, I'm much more aware of what's going on inside of Michael. And I think back before this occurred, when people would say to me when I was going through something or not being as well as I can be with self-care, friends and family members out of town. I'm not from Birmingham, so I'm pretty much here by myself in the state in terms of family and contacts prior to coming here in 2013. But people would say to me, well, what would you do? What would you do? Be the chaplain to yourself, and what would you do? And it used to kind of make me smile and think about that a lot. I've actually thought about that more and have been much more aware of my own needs and care for myself. And I've actually been much better about that since March.
And for me, I'll sort of join Michael saying trying definitely to be much better about self-care. UAB is such a big place, and we have these walking trails. And so much recently for me, it's been just taking a walk. And now that it's not so much staff here, it's not as crowded, and you're not so overwhelmed walking in the hallways. You can just take a good journey around and see very few people now. And so that's a good sort of space and time for me just to walk and to think. And also I keep a garden in my backyard that all the lovely woodland creatures think they're invited to as well, but that's okay, we share. And so gardening is just huge for me. It's a stress reliever. It is just incredible watching the growth, the transformation take place from seed to harvest. So that is a wonderful, wonderful thing for me. Just a stress reliever, and helps sort of take me down from everything that we sort of go through and experience here.
Thank you all. I just we are past time, but so of course, I know, Monica, you're on call right now, and if anybody needs to get off, I just wanted to just provide one last opportunity for the chaplains and artists to share anything that they feel they just want to share with the group before we close out.
Well, I'll go. I think, thank you for this, first of all, Kimberly, and for Arts and Medicine, and what you all do in this hospital is just, most people, or many people, are not as aware of it as they would be what chaplains do. So thank you for arts, and arts being good medicine here at UAB. I think for me, the greatest gift I am receiving right now in this pandemic is that of gratitude, which you saw reflected in a lot of things I said. But I tell you what, when you realize more and more day by day, life can change and has changed, and being able to connect and to have meaningful relationships on a regular basis is so important. And so for me, I think that's what I would close with is having people in our lives that we intentionally reach out to, in order, whether it's on the phone or in distancing in our back porch or wherever it might be. For me, that's really the key. And my hope is that people will be encouraged during this time, and we all can be a part of that. Go ahead, Michael, we got you.
I would just say to focus on your own blessings in your life. Find the good in each and every day. Always remember to breathe. And I try very hard not to really watch the news a whole lot, because the reality of what we see here in the hospital and what we really see day to day is very different than how things are reported, in terms of everything is just so looking at all the negative and all the bad and all the numbers and all the statistics. And I think it's very different than what I see in my own day and the good in our days and our lives. I feel very blessed.
And so as we close it, I would say I sort of join both what Malcolm and Michael lifted up. I definitely recognize my blessings, and when I was finally able to travel home and see my mom for Mother's Day after not having seen her since February, that was huge. And my father as well for Father's Day. And so we are all very blessed. And so COVID has definitely sort of reawakened me to that, I'll say. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. I see Don Wendorf Linda has something that she would like to say. Linda?
Yes, I want to thank the chaplains. I want to tell you that in 2011, I was the recipient of a chaplain's visit with my late husband who had Alzheimer's. And here it is, 9 years later, and I remember that visit. It meant so much to me. I think I've told Malcolm this story, but my husband had dementia and was literally restrained in his bed. And a young chaplain came in and asked me if she could visit. And the first thing that she asked was, tell me about your husband, tell me about his contributions. And it was just such a loving visit. It made such a huge impact to me. And even as I tell you this, I am full of emotion because as she concluded, she said, now may I say a prayer for you? And she did, and she prayed in thanksgiving for his contributions. And what I experienced is that when you make your visit, not only are you loving the patient, but you are loving and validating those who love the patient. And it's so powerful. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Linda, before everyone signs up, I just wanted to read a few things in the chat. Michael Belcher says, beautiful pictures and reflections. Thank you all, Malcolm, Mr. Marler and team, and ASC and team. Sharon Morgan says, all three presenters have been and are a blessing. This has been a wonderful time to be still and feel God's presence. Thank you for what you do for all the people whom you minister, listen to, care for, and love. And Brendan said, such a beautiful presentation. Hope. And so anyway, again, I just want to thank you. Thanks to our beautiful panelists. Again, I've always think that the work that you guys do is incredible, and it's so critically important. And of course, thanks Dana and Lauren and our team for supporting us with your technical wisdom and know-how. But again, just thanks everyone. And I'm so thankful for everyone on this call. Just so thankful that I got to spend some time with you all, and take care.
You too. Bye, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.